remember how to do this.
Look, we got regular sized water now.
All right, we will call to order the Planning Commission meeting of Thursday, February 20th, 2025. If we can start with roll call.
Roll call. Chair Dennison.
Here.
Vice Chair Simcock.
Here.
Commissioners Brennan.
Here.
Commissioner Moran.
Here.
Commissioner Yu.
Here.
You have quorum to conduct business.
Thank you. I will look for a motion to approve the agenda with a change, putting the council liaison report down before the Planning Commission reports.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the stated changes.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next up, we have approval of minutes of the December 5th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting. Any edits, changes, recommendations? Hearing none, I will look for a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. Any abstentions?
There or not?
I don't even remember.
You can proactively abstain.
I'll proactively abstain.
There we go.
I know he's
Abstain.
traveling in December.
Motion carries. All right. Next up is community input. At this time, any person may address the Planning Commission concerning an item that is not on the agenda. The Commission welcomes your attendance and participation. When addressing the Commission, please begin by providing your name and address for the record. Please keep comments to no more than 3 minutes to assure an orderly and timely meeting.
We do have Caitlin Wayne.
Good evening, Chair Dennison and Planning Commissioners. Just wanted to remind you all and our community that we do have the Senior Minor Home Rehabilitation Program. It is a CDBG funded program that offers grants up to $17,255 to our eligible low to moderate income seniors for any minor home rehab programs such as wheelchair ramps, tub conversions, or re-roofs. So far, the city has received 4 projects, and the grant allows us to do about 10. So we do encourage our eligible seniors to participate, and if they are interested, we have our program flyers and interest forms at City Hall, or they can also access it on our city website under grant programs. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Great program. Hearing no other community input, I think we will turn it over to our first discussion item, a California Legislative Update Part 2. Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Chair. As you stated, this is part 2 of our legislative update. In fairness to you all, I think this is going to be the least interesting.
What?
But it's going to be the most boring. But
I don't know if your mic is on. It doesn't.
no. But it was the most impactful. Interestingly, it seems like every year the legislator chooses a theme, something they want to focus on. One year they focused on streamlining all permits. One year they focused on ministerial review. This year they really focused on fees. So there was a lot of legislation limiting the city's ability to charge development fees and making them more transparent, et cetera. So we'll get into it. You know, the first slide, or I have the clicker. So the first thing is, under existing law, cities are required to post a current schedule of fees, exactions, and affordability requirements imposed on housing development projects. This is all posted on our website, how much it costs to build in the city. Under SB 1210, water and sewer utilities are required to post on their website, so the city's website, estimated fee schedules and timeframes for service connections for each housing development type: ADUs, multifamily, mixed use, and single family. So the idea being that a property owner that wants to develop one of these ADUs or single family homes can go online and figure out what what sewer connection fees cost and what water connection fees cost, because these end up actually being pretty pricey depending on certain factors of how the home's developed, etc. The requirement does not apply to utility that continues to post a schedule of their fees with the information pursuant to a government code section. So likely, we already comply with this. So because we already have our utility and water rates posted online and what the connection fees are. So we already likely comply with this under a different government code section, but now this is the law across the board. It really hits the the independent water districts and the independent sewer districts. But because it's all consolidated in the city, we already meet this requirement. Collecting development impact fees. So the existing rule is that development impact fees are paid upon the earlier of final inspection or issuance of a certificate of occupancy. The exceptions being for utility service fees, which can be paid earlier, public improvements where funds are already appropriated, which can be paid earlier, or when we're requesting reimbursements from a developer. Under the new set of rules, SB 937, there are these things called designated residential development projects, which I'll just say practically, it's almost all the projects, single family homes, affordable homes, all that stuff. Development impact fees are paid upon the issuance of the first certificate of occupancy, unless the city doesn't issue a certificate of occupancy, in which case it's the final inspection. Basically, it's pushing out the cost to a later date. Now, again, this doesn't really apply to us in the city because I believe I'll confirm with our director here, but I think we already collect at certificate of occupancy. Is that right?
Correct. We do have that in our fee schedule.
And we collect those fees at certificate of occupancy or at an earlier time? Do you know?
So usually the certificate of occupancy were requested by a bank or a escrow company. If that is not required, we do not issue them automatically. The final sign off from our building permit would serve as a certificate of occupancy. But if the certificate of occupancy were requested, we only issue them after final.
And so, like for everyone's awareness, when someone applies for a building permit, a lot of cities upon application try to collect that fee. In our city, do we collect that fee upon application, or do we collect that fee upon issuance of the building permit or upon the final inspection?
Upon the final inspection.
Okay,
That's
so
when the fee is collected.
we're already in compliance with this because that's how we do it anyway. And again, the idea is they want to push the costs off later because it's really it can be very expensive for the property owner in developing their home. Inclusionary housing in lieu fees. This is not something you have in Sierra Madre, but so you know, some cities like South Pass have something called an inclusionary housing ordinance. It basically says every time you develop in the city, when you're developing multifamily, a certain portion of that multifamily has to be affordable. So let's say they're developing 5 units. One of those 5 have to be affordable. It's required. Or you pay an in lieu fee. So if you don't build 5 affordable units, if you don't build 1 affordable out of 5, you got to pay the city something into its affordable housing trust fund. So that's inclusionary housing ordinances in general. Now, existing law authorizes cities to require developments to include a certain percentage of affordable housing. Cities must offer the developer the opportunity to pay an in lieu fee instead of building the housing. Under this new law, cities that collect inclusionary housing in lieu fees are required to post annually the amount of fees collected in the previous year and whether those fees are intended to be used for a project, and to post every 5 years the amount of fees collected in the past 5 years and the projects funded with the fees. So there are lots of different types of development fees. What you're all used to seeing in the city is what we call public facilities fees, also known as mitigation impact fees, also known as development impact fees. That's what you're traditionally used to seeing. These inclusionary in lieu fees are a separate bucket. Now, for the ones that you deal with in the city, we have to do all this anyway. We have to list every year how much we collected, how much is in the account, what we're using the funds for. We do all of that for development impact fees. But this was never the rule for these inclusionary housing in lieu fees. Now it is. They're basically creating parity between development impact fees and these in lieu fees. Vehicular traffic impact fees. This would be equivalent to your, I think we have traffic, public facilities fees, is that what we call it?
We have the vehicle mile.
What would we call the fee?
Traffic.
Do we have like a traffic impact fee or something? Is there
It's called VMT fees.
VMT fees. So in the city, we have VMT fees, which is the equivalent of what we're talking about here, what the legislator calls vehicle traffic impact fees. So cities are authorized to charge all developments mitigation impact fees for mitigating impacts of development of public facilities. Requires vehicular traffic mitigation impact fees to be reduced when they are next to transit stations. The idea is, if you're developing something, you're gonna bring more cars. More cars deteriorate roads, create other kinds of problems that the public has to fund, like building new roads and repaving them, etc. So what they do is they say, if you're going to develop more units, you have to pay this mitigation impact fee for traffic that you're going to generate. And if you're building units next to some kind of light rail or transit station, you can pay less, because we're assuming that people are going to use this light rail or transit system and that the traffic impacts won't be as much to the city, so we're going to charge you less for the cost that the city's going to have to bear because of your new development. Under this new law, AB 2553, the rule now applies to major transit stops. So it doesn't apply to transit stations anymore, it applies to major transit stops, which is defined to mean the intersection of two or more major bus routes with a frequency of service interval of 20 minutes or less during the morning and peak afternoon commute period. So I'll turn to staff again. Do we have anything like this in Sierra Madre?
No, the city does not have the two major bus route.
So again, doesn't really apply to Sierra Madre, but it applies to a lot of cities, including all our neighbors, I'm sure. Estimates of fees and exactions. Applicants for a residential development project may submit a preliminary application to freeze all the development standards and fees in place on the date the application was submitted. This is known as an SB 330 preliminary application. Applicants usually receive an estimate of the development impact fees upon applying for a building permit. So let me break this up into two separate parts. You have your permits for zoning, right? So you get your CUP or you get your design review permit. That's a zoning permit. And then you have your building permit. So think of these as two separate things: entitlement and a post-entitlement permit. One's for CUP design review, one's for building. In the building context, these post-entitlement permits, you could get an estimate up front. For the zoning ones, it wasn't common to provide an estimate of all the potential fees they were going to get. Under this new law, a preliminary application may request a preliminary fee and exaction estimate. City must provide the estimate within 30 days. The fee does not include gas or electrical service charges, CEQA-related expenses. Basically, now, when an applicant comes in and says, I want to apply for this development, and I'm using this application form, they just check mark saying, I want all the fees that apply. And we have to provide them an estimate so they know ahead of time what this whole thing is going to cost from beginning to end, including entitlement and post-entitlement permits. Within 30 business days of final approval of a project, the city must provide another estimate of fees or exactions. So we provide them the estimate early on when they apply for the entitlement, and then we provide them an updated estimate post-entitlement, so when they're applying for building permits. So this just provides a property owner with more certainty as to what they can expect to pay when they're developing in a city. Again, we provide these things upon request, in Sierra Madre. A lot of cities didn't. So this is just another example of us kind of being ahead of the curve. Okay, switching gears to density bonus law. As you all know, I heard a sigh. Density bonuses are an optional tool for developers who want to build multifamily to offer to build affordable units in exchange for getting around certain city development standards. So the state has said, we'll incentivize affordable units by allowing developers to build bigger, build more dense, build taller. Some cities charge monitoring fees on a recurring basis to oversee continued affordability of a density bonus housing project. Those monitoring fees are basically fees charged so that staff knows that these units that are built to be affordable are actually being rented out to people who income qualify. We don't charge that in Sierra Madre. So again, this is not something we do, but some large cities do charge this monitoring fee. Under this new law, cities can no longer charge monitoring fees if the housing development is subject to a regulatory agreement by the state, which administers its own monitoring fees. So really, like, developers were paying twice. Because for all these really big density bonus projects, they all get some kind of state subsidy. And if they're getting that state subsidy, they have to enter into a regulatory agreement with the state, and the state says, we're going to monitor whether these units are affordable. And at the same time, the city is saying, well, we're also going to monitor whether these units are affordable, and the developer was paying out twice for the same service. Now they're not going to pay out to the city anymore if they're paying out to the state. But if they're not paying out to the state, the city can still require it.
Does the city still have to monitor it?
If it collects some monitoring fees, it has to monitor it.
But if they don't, then they don't have to monitor it.
Right.
Okay.
I believe we get an annual report from, do we get annual reports from our from our density bonus developments?
As of now, we only had one that's on Baldwin Avenue that hasn't been developed yet.
Okay. I can't remember, did we write in that they have to report annually in the agreements on title? 70 Esperanza, yeah, 70 Esperanza definitely has that. And 70 Esperanza is subject to a state regulatory agreement too. So it would qualify for this. All right, moving on. Student housing density bonus. I'm just going to sum this up really quick. Lots of ways you can qualify for density bonus. Senior housing, low-income housing, one of them is student housing. This new law, because we don't have student housing in Sierra Madre, I'll skip it, but this new law makes student housing easier to build. Density bonus for RCFEs. This one's kind of interesting. RCFE stands for Residential Care Facilities for the Elderly. These are becoming increasingly more common. Senior citizen housing development qualifies for a density bonus of 20% of the number of senior housing units. Most of these RCFEs are actually tiny homes, like just regular single-family homes that where the individual bedrooms are housing senior residents. A lot of them are under 6, because that's what the state permit limits. I believe it's up to 6 residents, so each house can have 6 residents. But some of these RCFEs are larger. If you have the permit for the larger ones, you can get bigger ones, and now these RCFEs can qualify for a density bonus too, which didn't exist before. Not because they're building affordable, keep in mind, but because they're building housing for senior citizens.
So I know we have the Kensington, it sounds like that's not one of these, but maybe there's the British Home, are they one of these?
I don't know if the British Home. Do you guys know what their permit is?
Yeah.
It's a state permit.
They have like, I think, separate houses for folks, yeah, just curious.
So I'll note, residential care facilities for the elderly don't have any kind of medical staff on site. So I don't know if the Kensington does or doesn't.
The Kensington has nurses, I know.
It has nurses?
And yeah.
Yeah, so it probably isn't, because under their license for an RCFE, they just provide like laundry and assistance with living, but they don't provide any kind of medical care. AB.
So an example of this would be if you have a small lot and you want to exceed what would normally be the allowable square footage on there, using this, you would be able to add to it?
Yes, but this wouldn't apply to a single-family zone. So if you're in the multifamily and you want to build multiple units, at least 5, you can qualify for this one.
That's right, because density bonus doesn't kick in until 5, right?
Right.
Okay.
Under this new law, AB 2694, it clarifies that a senior citizen housing development includes RCFEs. There was arguments back and forth about whether it did. It defines a shared housing unit for purposes of an RCFE to mean 1 or more habitable rooms. That includes a bathroom, sink, refrigerator, and microwave used for permanent residence without an individual kitchen. So really, as you can see, not a lot of movement on density bonus law. They're just, working along they're refining some of the details there in the density bonus law, but nothing earth-shattering. But a lot of movement in the fees space, but none that really impacts Sierra Madre because we already comply with everything, or it doesn't apply to us because we don't have inclusionary housing ordinances, etc. So nothing really changes for Sierra Madre in this legislative cycle with respect to density bonus laws and development fees. And that concludes my report, part 2.
Great, thank you. Any questions for staff? Looks like our city council liaison still has not arrived, so we'll go ahead and move past that. Planning Commission reports. Commissioners have anything to report? Planning and Community Preservation Department report.
Thank you, Chair. So before I go into the future agenda items, we would like to share some of the information that we were provided by LA County, this joint task force. Some information for the public regarding EPA status for all the fired impacted properties. Our senior planner Wolf will pull up a few websites and we will report out from what we learned from the task forces.
So just to start, what you're looking at here is the main website that the LA County has built for the recovery effort. The link to it is here on screen. It's https://recovery.lacounty.gov. And here you see the website, and I'll kind of browse through it. I have some tabs open that are already kind of loaded for that. So LA County has made available a fire damage inspection status map, and I've zoomed in here on Sierra Madre, and this is readily available to the public through that website I just said. And you can go through here, you can look at before and after aerial imagery of the fire. All these homes you see, all these icons you see on the map indicate those homes that have been inspected for fire damage. They are only, the extent of the inspection is only the exterior. So everything that is a black house there is inspected and no damage was found. But everything you see colored, the green one, it means that there was minimal damage, yellow means that there was some damage, and red means that there was total loss. The county's website also provides a wealth of information on the debris removal efforts, including the right of entry forms that everyone will need to be everyone affected will need to be submitting if they want to be included in the government debris removal efforts. There's phase 1 information and phase 2. Currently, phase 1 is occurring, and it's in process in Sierra Madre. I'll show you a map of what that looks like, but phase 2 is set to start soon, and that's phase 1 is being conducted by the U.S. EPA. Phase 2 is being conducted by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So here's a map of the status of phase 1 debris removal. And what you can see here is several parcels that were identified to be damaged in some way. And those parcels that are color coded, you'll see phase 1 still needed is yellow. Phase 1 complete is blue. And deferred to phase 2 means that there was substantial amount of damage at the property that they need to defer all of that to the Army Corps of Engineers. It means that the level of damage there was quite high. And then if there's any red, which I don't see, that means that there was no access to the property. So a phase 2 map is also being made available, but as you can see from this image, there's no status as of now to the phase 2 recovery effort, just because there hasn't been any effort made in the city. But if I were to scroll a little bit west, you might see some that have either a status of right of entry forms have been accepted, or that they're in queue with a contractor for phase 2 removal. So that's just to show a demonstration of those statuses. So those other websites I just pointed to were the jumping points to get to the maps from the main page of the county website. That concludes what I have to show for the websites. I'll turn it back over to Claire.
So we just want to provide the general information for the public. All the fire destroyed property were contacted. We personally contact every single one parcel. Luckily, Sierra Madre only had 31 parcels that's affected. So we have contacted every single property owner. The next phase will be waiting for Army Corps of Engineers to come in to start phase 2, debris removal. And that actually leads to our future agendized items. For the next meeting, City Attorney will be presenting a ordinance for the Eaton Fire rebuild. We would like to solicit your input on the rebuild effort.
So we haven't agendized it for discussion, so we won't have a discussion. But I wanted to flag that this is coming to you at your next Planning Commission meeting on the 6th, I believe. All the department heads, all the relevant department heads came together to provide their input on how to streamline the rebuild process and to make it more affordable. So we have a lot of suggestions. I'm going to put it all into one single ordinance that's going to be uncodified, meaning it's not going to amend our municipal code. It's just going to float out there for 5 years, allowing property owners that were specifically impacted by the Eaton fire to take advantage of it. And after 5 years, it'll expire on its own. But we're gonna solicit your feedback on the written text at the next meeting. But in the interim, if you guys have any if the commissioners have any suggestions on ways that you think that the city might be able to streamline development, make it more affordable, certain requirements that exist that you think can be waived perhaps or suspended, let us know, because we're considering all options.
Nice.
So also on the next meeting, we will have a variance for you to review and also a reporting out for the annual progress report of 2024. That concludes my report.
Great. Thank you very much. Anything else from anybody? All right, then I will adjourn our meeting to our next regularly scheduled meeting of March 6th, 2025.